Hello there, I am Zolairlaw, and this is the Joy of Computer Gaming, where we investigate good, awful, and intriguing examples of computer game history. Today's featured game is Agent USA, the adventure across America, acquire accumulating alien aquamarines, and apprehend an angry apparatus's anarchists' agents game. It's a sort of action-adventure educational-ish game that's so different it's a little hard to classify it exactly. It came out in 1984 for the Atari 8-bit and Apple II, and then later on the Commodore 64 and PC in 1985. It was created by Tom Snyder Productions and published by Scholastic Incorporated. This game is rather unique and actually fun to play, and even has its own nifty little theme song. It's a game I come back to every few years to defeat the fuzz bomb yet again, because there's really nothing like it and because it's pretty simple and short to play through the entire game. Most of the game is played controlling Agent USA around various train stations across the United States. Your character is just a white hat with little feet coming out the bottom. The NPCs are either friendly citizens represented by black hats with feet, or fuzz bodies which look like TV static with feet. There's also the fuzz bomb, which is the source of all of the problems. If a regular citizen is carrying crystals, you'll occasionally see it flicker on them. The stations are a series of simple rooms and the actual train tracks. The most impressive looking place in the game is the train tracks area. Here you can see a skyline and the trains coming and going, either from the left or the right. The skylines are pretty cool, though as far as I know only New York City's is very accurate, showing the Twin Towers. In some, there are mountains shown in the background. This also changes depending on the time of day. There are 1 to 4 other rooms, depending on the size of the city, that are just a solid color, and one of those is going to contain the ticket booth as well as the info booth if you're in a capital city. The manual for this game is really cute. It has so much more character than most other manuals of the time, and it'd be nice if some of that bled over into the game more. The secret agent on a mission style of the book fits the game really well. Elma Sniddle found some otherworldly crystals in her backyard. She tried to use them to power her latest invention, a new type of television, which quickly turned into the fuzz bomb. It started turning anybody nearby into fuzz bodies, nothing more than mindless walking static. The fuzz bomb has gotten loose and has been traveling from city to city, turning more and more people into fuzz bodies. Fuzz bodies can also turn regular citizens into more fuzz bodies. Thankfully, if any fuzz body comes in contact with one of the alien crystals, they turn back to normal, until they run into the fuzz bomb or a fuzz body tries to turn them again. You play as Agent USA, sent to track down and disarm the fuzz bomb. You've been given 10 of the mysterious crystals to help you get started. You can grow more at any time by leaving 1 or more on the ground, and they will start replicating. You need to have 100 of them to disable the fuzz bomb and save mankind from being doomed to fuzziness. It isn't much, but when you start the game, if you don't jump in right away, the game gives you a tutorial on the basic premise and how to play it. This makes the game quite ahead of its time, since almost nothing back then did this sort of thing except for Alibaba, which came out a few years earlier that I can remember. The game seems to be designed to be running in a school computer room in a way to catch your attention. The game is played traveling around the continental United States. You control Agent USA with the joystick using the button to drop a crystal. You pick them up simply by touching them, and other citizens can pick them up as well. You can carry a maximum of 100 crystals, and the NPCs can carry, I think, 8 or 10 of them each. You use the crystals to turn fuzz bodies back into normal citizens. You also lose half of your crystals instantly should you come in contact with a fuzz body, or you turn into one if you have no crystals at the time of contact. You instantly turn into one if you touch the fuzz bomb and don't have 100 crystals. If you get turned into a fuzz body, generally the game is over. On rare occasion, another citizen that happens to have crystals may free you, but for the most part, you just wander aimlessly as a slightly faster fuzz body for the rest of time. There isn't a game over screen, it just looks like this, and you can't control anything. Information about the spread of the fuzz and where the fuzz bomb is at any time can only be found in the info booths, which are only available in the state capitals. To get around, you can get a ticket for an outgoing train. They are good for any time period to that destination. You have to type out the full name of the city and state abbreviation to get the tickets. You board a train simply by walking onto it. If you don't have a ticket for it, you'll be kicked out after a second, though if you time it right, you could hop onto a train without a ticket just before it leaves. There are also high-speed trains between the largest cities, and these you cannot hop on without a ticket. All trains are assumed to be on a 2-city loop, so when a train to Boston arrives, it's assumed that it just came from there as well. Regular citizens and fuzz bodies can also ride the train, so be careful when a train arrives for a dangerous destination. When traveling, the game plays the theme song and shows time go by, then mentions what time zones are affecting the time you'll be arriving. When you are not traveling, time passes at close to real time, with every second being about a second in the game. The AI is pretty simplistic. The regular citizens largely just bounce around the rooms randomly and don't seem to have a care for anything most of the time. However, if you drop any crystals, they will try to get at them, so be certain to have a decent out-of-the-way place to grow more. They also will act a couple different ways when fuzz bodies are around. They will generally run away, or they can move erratically like they're freaked out or uncertain what to do, which generally means they get fuzzed. If they have crystals, they will drop a crystal on occasion, which sometimes even unfuzzes a fuzz body chasing them. Fuzz bodies use largely the same AI when there are no normal people around. They'll chase after normal people as if they were crystals, and they completely ignore crystals, which makes it easier to turn them back to normal. The fuzz bomb has no AI and simply sits in the center of one of the rooms of the station it's in. You can grow all the crystals you want right around it to help you finish it off. However, it may take off to another city if you take too long. There's a cool little theme song in the game that's unique and memorable. It plays during part of the tutorial as well as when you travel from one city to the next. The sounds are simplistic but get the job done. There's the sound of dropping a crystal when spawning, picking one up, someone getting fuzzed, and someone getting reverted to normal. The reverted sound is also played if you or a citizen picks up crystals when you're full. All of the sounds are a lot quieter when you're not in the same room of the station as the sound is occurring. The standard trains sound serviceable, given the sound hardware on the Atari. However, I have to say the express trains sound pretty cool, like some sort of futuristic train. They even hum while loading and unloading passengers and rush off when it's time to leave. Though it isn't hinted at in the story or actually shown in the game, this game is actually marketed as an educational product, because you have to know different cities around the country, what states they are in, which are capitals, and so on. I have to tell you that playing this as a kid, I had absolutely no idea this was an educational game. I just happily played it, since to me it was simply a fun, unique game to play. Though I do still know most of the state capitals, so something stuck with me. My siblings and I liked the idea a lot, so we made LEGO versions of Agent USA, as well as making others like LEGO Canada, which was red and white, and LEGO France, which was green for some reason. I don't remember at all what we did with them other than that, though. In any case, Agent USA isn't without its faults. It's hard to grow your crystals because the Black Hats keep trying to take them even if they're full, though the game would be more boring otherwise, as this does keep you busy while they're growing. When going from one room to the next, you can't see what's immediately through the doorway, even though the game treats them as a single seamless map, so you might hit a fuzz body going through and lose half your crystals. When you're buying tickets, you often can't see the full list of destinations and may not even see where you want to go in the list, but it's still a valid destination. And there's no way to know what ticket you have once you've ascertained one, or where a train is going to when it arrives. A little pop-up text message about that would have been nice. Other things, like how it's a bit hard to tell what is where on the map since there are no state borders showing, are just nitpicks. Still, if you want to try a weird old game that'll only eat up 30 minutes or so of your time, it's worth checking out. I only know of a single actual bug in the game which I didn't even find until I was recording some extra videos after writing a lot of the script. If you board the train just as it's pulling away, the train will head on without you and you won't actually go anywhere. You can just press down to reappear as if you were on the non-existent train. However, if you wait around until the next train, even if it's an express train, you'll be whisked away to the next location when it leaves. Timing this is really difficult, so it isn't generally practical for hopping on express trains without a ticket. You can completely take over a town by shoving every citizen onto a train. This makes it really easy to generate all the crystals you want, but aside from that, there isn't a whole lot of a point to doing it. You can see the grid-like pattern the crystals like to respawn on easily this way, though. The cover art on the manual, with Agent USA showing his eyes through his hat, is a bit on the silly side. I would have made it look exactly the same, but without the eyes. What do you think? Better without the silly eyes, right? Or we could add eyes to the characters in the game. What do you think? Better? Okay, watching what I've made, it makes the game look very silly with goofy eyes on everything, though it is a little hard to see them. This is the Apple II version released in 1984. It plays with a joystick if you have one, which feels very similar to the Atari version but less responsive. Right away we notice that everything feels a little sluggish in comparison. The station looks a bit different, with non-slanted tracks, and the trains only have the engine, no additional cars. The sounds are very minimalistic, and the theme song is completely gone. Both types of train make the same sounds, but it is woefully inaccurate for the express trains as the timing is way off for them. When traveling, the timer moves slowly and there's a ticking sound. It's really bad going from Chicago to Seattle, the longest route I know of in the game. Just waiting on this screen for that trip takes over 55 seconds. For comparison purposes, I did the same trip on the same screen in the Atari 8-bit version, and it only takes 27 seconds. So traveling takes about twice as long on the Apple II version. The crystals also really hate replicating in this version. They seem to take at least twice as long to grow, which didn't help the sluggish feeling in the game. When traveling, your train arrives at weird times, 5 seconds later than the schedule show. Normally this wouldn't be a big deal, except it also seems to mess with the schedule of the trains. Once, while I was being a little indecisive about where to go next, the schedule completely changed. I had to go back to double check. Here's the schedule before I bought the ticket. Here it is after I bought it. Weird. This version is playable, but it gets boring because of how slow everything feels. I didn't even complete the game I was playing because I was more than an hour into it, and I could just play the Atari 8-bit version instead if I wanted to actually play the game. Here is the Commodore 64 version, released in 1985. Aside from very different sound effects, this plays pretty much just like the Atari 8-bit version. The sounds are a bit weird. The theme song actually sounds pretty cool here, albeit with very weak-sounding drums in comparison. Dropping and collecting gems sounds pretty similar to the Atari version. However, when someone turns back to normal after being fuzzed, there's a loud laser sort of sound, which, so short after playing Rings of Zilfin on the C64, you realize it's the same sound as when you swing in that game. Though that did come out after Agent USA. The trains are something else, though. A standard train sounds like a series of machine gun fire, followed by an explosion. This doesn't sound much like a train at all. The express train only sounds marginally better, except with a really long hiss afterwards, so you don't hear the train humming at all like the Atari version. This poses a real problem while playing the game because it's rather loud and it doesn't get quieter when you're in other parts of the station, so you hear these really loud, obnoxious train sounds the entire time you're playing the game, especially in larger cities like Dallas, which is where I found the fuzz bomb. The regular trains make sounds for 13 seconds, and the express trains do for 12 seconds. In big towns, a train comes and goes every 15 seconds, so you only get 2 to 3 seconds of pause between these train sounds. Fixing the fuzz bomb sounds weird too. This is the MS-DOS version released in 1985. It uses only internal speaker sounds and CGA graphics. I'm assuming it was meant to be used on a composite screen which would have artifacted the colors, but in DOSBox we get lots of vertical lines. It's a bit hard to look at for very long. There is very little sound. You hear a double chirp before a train leaves regardless of type. There are sounds for the crystals and getting fuzz-bodied or cured, and that's about it. You can hear the sounds everywhere in the station as if you were right next to them. The theme song is recognizable, but doesn't sound very good. The controls are the arrow keys and the spacebar. Otherwise, it played pretty much exactly like the Atari 8-bit version. However, after I recorded the intro, it completely crashed DOSBox. That's not something you see too often. I was worried fixing the fuzz bomb would also cause it to crash, but that worked just fine. Here are some comparisons between the versions. I'm not certain how successful the sound comparisons are going to be, but I might as well give it a try. As the name implies, Tom Snyder Productions was created by Tom Snyder. His company created a few other games in the 1980s, none of which I played except the Haley Project, which I had completely forgotten about until doing this research because it seemed nearly impossible to do much of anything except crash into planets in the sun. Looking at the manual helps a lot. I don't think we ever had the manual. Tom Snyder Productions ended up being absorbed by Scholastic in 2001-ish. Tom Snyder himself is credited with creating the percussion-heavy theme song for Agent USA. Adding heavy percussive parts was apparently a trademark of his, like the sound the Haley Project makes as you're nearing hyperspace. Tom helped create a number of cartoons and regularly used an animation technique he called squiggle vision, in which entities like people were drawn 3 to 5 times without actual movement, and a computer alternated between the various drawings of the same image. This technique has been used elsewhere and is called line boil or just squiggly animation. Here's a demonstration of it with Agent USA, which makes him look more alive, even though this is just alternating between 3 sketches I made quickly in Photoshop. Tom's technique was made popular in Dr. Kat's Professional Therapist and was used regularly by his animation studio, Soup to Nuts, which was also owned by Scholastic. Soup to Nuts was shut down in 2015 due to downsizing in Scholastic. Scholastic largely makes books and educational materials for schools and students. They are also known for publishing book series for children and young adults such as Goosebumps, The Magic School Bus, and Harry Potter in the US. They have produced a number of educational games over the years as well, especially the Clifford the Big Red Dog series and I Spy series, though I couldn't find any new games created by them since 2012.